This is how to answer the interview question, tell me about yourself. And this was actually the very first video that I had posted up on my channel 2 years ago. And thank you to the 400 viewers who had watched that video in pretty poor quality and editing. And so I figured it's been 2 years, so I should revamp and update that video with a better camera, better editing, and of course, new and improved advice. So in this video, I'm going to talk about exactly how to answer this super important interview question and some common mistakes that I see people make that can lead to getting you rejected. Okay, before we get into the video, if you want more interview tips and tricks just like this so you can increase your chances of passing your next job interview, make sure you click subscribe down below. All right, let's jump into it. Tell me about yourself. Why should we hire you? Walk me through your resume. All three of these interview questions basically ask you the exact same thing, and all three of them are going to require basically the same exact interview answer. And that's why you may notice that you won't get asked multiple of these different questions from each of your interviewers because, again, they're all asking the same thing, and that's why they're only going to ask you one of those three questions. And this question always comes up very early in the beginning of the interview process, usually on your very first call with the recruiter or the hiring manager. So you need to know exactly how to answer this question if you want to move forward in the interview process. Alright, so first let's talk about how to answer this tricky interview question. Well, first, make sure that your answer is between 1 and 2 minutes, no longer and no shorter. And when you are answering this question, everything that you say needs to be 100% relevant to the job that you are applying for. So let's say you have a finance degree, but you are applying for a marketing job. You shouldn't be talking about what degree you got back in college because it's not relevant. Similarly, if you are applying for, say, a product marketing manager role, you shouldn't talk about how you started your career in sales and then transitioned over, because again, that is not relevant for the job in which you are applying for. The more customized and specific your answer is to this interview question, to the exact job that you are applying for, the better your answer will be. And that's why I encourage you to ask the interviewer, ask the hiring manager or the recruiter to give you additional details of what they are looking for in this candidate for this particular role. Don't rely entirely just on the job description because there's always other things that they really want in their ideal candidate. And lastly, don't be afraid to share 1 or 2 data points or examples that demonstrate how you are such a great candidate and why you should stand out from all of the other candidates that they are interviewing for. Share a very unique accomplishment that had huge impact for your business or your team. Alright, so here is my sample interview example if I were to be interviewing for a technical recruiting position. So tell me about yourself. Sure thing. I've been doing technical and non-technical full cycle recruiting for the last 4 years at my company. I've done hiring for high volume roles, niche roles, as well as executive or leadership positions as well. Currently, I am recruiting for silicon and hardware engineers from the principal level all the way up to fellow. So currently I've been focusing more on niche leadership positions. Ever since I joined the company, I've achieved at least 150% of my OA target. But on top of recruiting, I've also led large-scale projects that have impacted both my staffing team as well as my clients. For instance, I created and implemented a time survey amongst my staffing team, which led to overall increased recruiter efficiency of 22% and OA achievement by 5% across the entire HR recruiting team. And for my clients, I had created a brand new leveling and interview process for the entire global HR business partner group. Alright, so now let's talk about some common mistakes that I see a lot of people make when they're answering the interview question, tell me about yourself. And the very first mistake is giving an answer that is way too long. Your answer should be somewhere between 1 and 2 minutes. If your answer is longer than 2 minutes, then you probably need to think about what are some of these extra details that you're sharing as part of your answer that are not relevant for the story or relevant for the job itself. Or sometimes if you're sharing everything that's relevant about your background and experience, sometimes your stories or examples that you're sharing are too long. Remember, you don't need to give the whole STAR as a part of your tell me about yourself. It just needs to be a very brief example like I gave during my sample. Now, the second mistake that I see people make when they're answering this question is not differentiating yourself in your answer. Sometimes you can just talk about all of the different accomplishments and experiences or skills that you have as a candidate, which makes you appear to be a really good fit for the role, but doesn't help you stand out. And this is going to be super important, especially if you are applying for the top tier companies in your particular industry. You need to figure out what is your secret sauce and maybe sprinkle that into your answer so that you are standing out from everybody else. And the third mistake that I see, which is honestly a bit surprising, is that a lot of people will group together their answer for "tell me about yourself" and "why do you want to work here?" Remember, those are two separate questions. So when you're answering "tell me about yourself," you don't need to explain why you are applying for this role or why you want to work for their company. That is a totally separate question. And the last mistake I see is repeating exactly what is on your resume back to the interviewer when you are answering this interview question. Remember, if you had applied for this job or they found you on LinkedIn or something, they probably already know what your resume or experience is based on your profile. So you don't need to repeat everything that's on there as a part of your answer. Instead, you need to be highlighting the important accomplishments that are relevant for the role and making sure that you're sprinkling in something that helps you stand out from everybody else, just like in the point I made earlier. It's okay to quickly recap some of the main skills that you have on your resume that are directly relevant for the role, but the majority of your answer in those 1 to 2 minutes should be additional context that they weren't able to glean easily from your resume and background or LinkedIn profile. Alright, so now you know how to answer the interview question, "tell me about yourself," as well as some common mistakes to avoid. If you really enjoyed this video, please let us know by dropping a thumbs up down below and comment what other tricky or important interview questions do you want us to answer for you. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.